Hi, everyone. All right, so thanks, Sean, for introducing me. My name's Ben. As you can see, no, you can't see anything yet. All right, that was me at HIP last year. And as Sean said, I've been working since 2004, been through a lot of different consulting companies. That's basically what I love doing. So lastly, I was at Accenture and worked as the cyber resilience lead for the past 5 years, and then moved on to a new opportunity back at Capgemini. So you guys might not know Cap. It's a smaller company, around 330,000 people, I think, something like that, when Accenture was 800,000. So it's a smaller version, I guess. It's different, and it's mostly French, but I do know that we also have a whole office in the US, and we're trying to gain traction here. Oh yeah, the zapper is slow. Okay. And it skipped. Okay. All right. So same issues as yesterday, by the way. When you click on the zapper, it moves down 2 slides. Just saying. All right. So today we're going to talk about practical steps to building operational resilience. Okay. Does anybody know what operational resilience is? You guys can just, lift your hand, raise your hand, and start talking about it. I like it to be interactive. So
Be like now and plus three availability type of scenario that you don't do backup.
not necessarily. So it's just a way, let's say, to keep your business running. Because, well, you have tons of stuff in your business, servers, SaaS, cloud, whatever, applications, your laptops, maybe you're in an industry, you have OT, IoT, whatever. So it's just figuring out, what's the most important stuff that's used in your business and how you keep it running. Because at the end of the day, it's what makes your business money that's supposed to stay on top, even if you're in your cyber crisis or whatever. Okay. By the way, my slides, I always try to tend to make them funny. So most messages will be oral, but you can always check the slides out because, there's a lot of rap or movies or references or whatever. Okay. Last year, so this is a quick flashback to HIP 2024. It was about, anything that was related to cyber attacks throughout the world. And as you can see, it's pretty expensive. So I'm not going to go through every different line, but what you really need to understand right here is that we're talking about the average cost of ransomware attack. That's the second part, around 4.5 to 5 million. That's not me saying it. It's IBM. It's a study. And on the IRs that I've worked with with my teams, it's mostly that. Okay. Plus, of course, damage that can be more than just money, reputational damage and whatever. Okay. An interesting part also is that half the companies, they also have policy to pay ransoms. Okay. This is not something that we usually go for, but most of them actually do have it. But even when they pay, they don't always get all their data back in return. Okay. And that's the most important part, is it's not because you pay that you're going to get everything back. Okay. So we have to find different ways of doing that. Okay. Any questions, or are we pretty much okay? All right. So, does anybody follow a cybersecurity framework in their business today? Yeah. Do you guys know about the NIST cybersecurity framework? And can someone tell me about the 5 pillars, or should I just move on? So this is version 1. So there are only 5 on version 1, 6 on the second one. Okay. My question is for you. So, do you even follow this type of framework? So I got a few yeses here and there. The second question is, how mature is your company? Do you guys really go through all the different, yeah, I can see some yeses. And how do you evaluate it afterwards? Do you have a external company that comes in and, okay, audits you?
Assessment, yes.
Okay. And is it just going through a list of questions, yes, no, whatever, and they give you a green tick and your maturity is very close to 5 because you're giving all the good answers, or do they actually check things?
So the methodology we use is to uh, use the organizational documentation, leverage that with interviews, right? That provide a request sampling, evidence and then compare that to various aspects of the
All right, cool.
and that CML.
All right, cool. So what type of industry do you work in?
I'm a former service provider, so
All right, I got it. All right, so so I don't know if you guys heard the answers. It's actually pretty rare. Most of the companies or the clients I work with, they go for a self-assessment, and they're all very, very good, it seems, until we go in and we'll do the assessment for them, and then actually it's not exactly what they presented. Another question for you guys: where do you spend your money? Where does your company on the security side spend the money? Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. Mostly. Anyone? All right. So identify, protect, detect. That's where most of the companies today put all the effort. And I know that there was a session yesterday where we were talking about, it was actually in this room with Gen AI and hackers. And we were talking about how we used to hack, 20 years ago, and how we used to set up defenses that were very, parametric, build a wall and make sure that nothing comes in. This is pretty much the same. So most of the companies I work with, they will work on identify, protect, and detect, thinking that they can stop or they can see anything, and they will never need to go to, the last pieces, sorry, which are respond and recover. And this is, I guess, what we're going to talk about today. So because I like rap, this is Nelly. He says, I put my money where my mouth is. And as you can see, he has huge grills. So we know exactly where he puts his money. And this was the question is, where does your C-suite actually put their money? And most of the times, this is what we get. They will ask you to build a B case based on risk management and impact analysis. And then, tick a few boxes, because that's the most important part is, yes, I've implemented PAM, I've implemented SIEM solution, I have a 24/7, IR team ready or whatever. So they're just ticking boxes to ensure that they have a very mature score. And at the end, they only put a little money on some pillars, one of the 5 pillars, but not enough. All right, so now we're going to version 2. So I guess someone already spoiled the fact that there were 6 pillars. And one of the most important pillars for me is the govern part, okay? Can anyone tell me exactly what the govern part is, or if you've already started to implement it or thought about it within your companies? No? Sorry? No, governance. I mean, if it's not just identity governance, if you look at it, it's governance throughout everything. So this is a very interesting one. All right. Governance, first of all, you can have governance and identity throughout your teams, your IAM teams, your AD teams, your Entra teams, and whatever, especially if you're in a company that's spanned throughout the world. So yeah, there's already governance and a RACI that's supposed to be defined within, say, that team, but also in the different bricks. So if you're talking about AD, so I guess you guys still all have AD, right? Somewhere? You're not full cloud? Okay, how many of you guys have hypervisors? Do you run on physical machines or do you run on hypervisors? Okay, hypervisors. Are your DCs, or your virtual machines that host the DCs on the hypervisors, separated from the rest of the hypervisors? Are they dedicated to the tier 0 infrastructure or not? So I get some yeses. I'm pretty sure some of you, I get some no's. Or does everybody have a dedicated tier 0, hypervisor infrastructure? Right? And you didn't get it. So now when we're talking about governance, a very simple example. Let's say tomorrow your AD is dead and you need to bring back AD. Whether you use a tool or whatever, what are the first steps? You will need to have a VM. The VM is hosted on the hypervisors. Hypervisors are not run or maintained by the same teams. So you definitely need governance between the teams, okay? This is what I'm trying to talk about when I say about governance, okay? So are your orgs today, do you have a very, very, defined operating model or not? Or are you defining a target operating model or not? I got some yeses, some nos. All right. Well, I guess this is good. So we're going to talk about this today. And are you guys adding some GRC in there? So I'm pretty sure that guy right in front, yes. For the rest of you, no? No, okay. All right, so most of the time, this is when I say you just close your eyes and you pretend it's all a bad dream. And that's how I get by, okay? All right. The ugly truth for most Fortune 500 companies that I worked with. So, as I said, I've been doing consulting for more than 20 years. I've worked with all major industries: food, insurance, banking, luxury, retail, whatever you call it. And the thing is, I always come across the same issues. Okay, so what I did is I actually took the cybersecurity framework for NIST v2, and I put it down here, and you split it up between, govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and with some little items. Okay, and I actually have a question for you guys because I will share what I usually see. Okay, and I just want to know if this is actually the real life and within your companies. Govern part. All right, we usually have a high level org context, meaning we have an org chart, and that's about it. No risk management strategy. When it says you're supposed to think about the supply chain, most of the time I get the what's the supply chain. Basic RACI, no interop view. So this is what I was talking about. If your hypervisors are maintained by a different team, how do you interact with them when you need to do something? How do the different teams work together? Okay, so usually we don't have that, and mostly outdated procedures. Does this seem to be about right or so? Okay. All right, the identify part. So they are asking about asset management. So did anyone here have a clean CMDB within their lifetime? No. Okay, so we agree on that. Same thing with the risk assessment. As I said, usually it's a self-service thing. So I just did this for an industrial client in France, a big industrial client. And we went through a whole analysis with them, interviews and everything. And we built basically a framework that's pretty much the same as this one. And we came out with really bad scores. And the client was not happy about it because they had invested 30 million last year and went through a whole lot of programs to try to update, improve their infrastructure. And in the end, well, it was only, half baked, whatever. And they went through a self-assessment, and that was the issue. So they went on Gartner. Gartner, really, really cool. And there are some self-assessments. I don't know if you guys know about this. Well, if you pay, the Gartner, if you have a link to it, basically you can go through a self-assessment. It's actually really good. But if you're not really honest on the questions or on the answers, then, everything's in the green. And that's what I usually call the watermelon effect, is all the teams, that are really below the tech guys will come up and say, look, we have issues with this, we have issues with that. And as it goes up the chain, it's usually diluted and turns from red, inside on green on the outside. So all the C levels, they always see everything as green, and that's okay. So that's the watermelon effect right there. Improvement. Why would we need to improve? Because we're best in class. That's what I usually get from most of my clients. We spent a whole lot of money. Everything's military grade. No need for improvement. Okay. Protect. All right. Still, some clients who don't have the tiering model on AD. So I don't know if this is still the case here. And if you want to push it a little harder, we could talk about enterprise access model. And then I'm pretty sure that most of you guys don't have that implemented. Same thing with, IAM solutions, no end-to-end IAM lifecycle. Do you guys have that with joiners, leavers, whatever, link between your technical accounts and your non-technical accounts, password rotation, service accounts, all that? You guys all handle that today? You're working on it. All right, cool. But I mean, it's not in place today. All right. Awareness campaigns. Yeah, I see a few, but that's about it. So that's when they're talking about awareness. I just see a few campaigns here and there. Data classification, for me, that's a myth. So even in banking, most people don't go through data classification. I don't know if that's the case here. Do you guys have all your documents sorted and classified? And no, everybody's laughing again. All right, so. Right. Okay. So I've worked in regulated environments, and well, sometimes it's not perfect. I worked with aerospace and defense with France and the US. And in the US, well, we had to sort of adapt a little bit, a few things, and it was signed off. So, I mean, it's never perfect, but I get what you're saying. All right. Platform security, all right, we see some. I'm still fighting with the buzzer, sorry. All right. Same issues as yesterday. All right, it's all right. We'll keep the two last ones. All right, couple mil is what people usually spend on SIEM SOAR solutions, but you don't have 24/7 teams, or if you have 24/7 teams for SIEM and SOAR, they usually can't handle any, let's say, high privileged, operations on AD. So if someone hits you during the nighttime, they might catch it, and if they catch it, what they have to do is they have to actually call someone who's on call on the AD team, and by the time he gets up and, gets on the call, then he has to call his supervisor, his manager, to actually be able to do whatever operation he needs to do. Does that sound familiar, or do you guys run 24/7 and you can do everything all the time? 24/7 for AD? Okay. What industry do you work in? All right. So yeah, some clients, yeah. Pharmaceutical was same, 24/7, but yeah, okay. Energy says yes for 24/7. Once again, so 24/7 for AD. Does your AD team, for example, also have, fully segregated tier 0 environment for them? Do they connect with pause? Do they maintain the pause? Do they maintain?
Working on mature.
All right. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that, they're available 24/7, but what if, they have to operate something on the VMware server or on the Hyper-V server or whatever, if they don't have the permissions to do it, or if they don't have the knowledge, then you're still stuck. So what I'm trying to say here is most of the time we're able to detect things, we're able to see things, but it takes a very, very long time to, operate or do whatever. And the truth is, usually when you get an attack, so what we've seen is more than, I think it was 85% of the time, you will get hit out of office hours or during weekends, because that's usually when you're not running your 24/7 and your teams are doing something else. So yeah. Last part, recover. So usually what I tend to see is there's no structure in the recovery part. Root cause analysis, that's the most important thing. So, when something goes wrong, we don't really know how to fix it. Everybody's running everywhere. Then we end up by fixing it, and we'll do a great document, an RCA saying, oh, we found the issue and this is how we're fixing it. All right. IR is usually externalized. Do you guys have IR teams? Okay. How many people? 2? 5? Really? How big is your company? Or that's actually pretty good. Okay. 5 people for 6,000. Some of my clients have, 2 to 5 people, but they're usually 40,000 employees or something like that. So I guess that five for 6,000 is actually pretty good. Okay. Um, what we tend to see also is no plan, meaning no mitigation, because we're talking about in the recovery part, you have, any mitigation possible or any way to recover that's not full recovery or whatever. And most of the time I see no plans. The last one, all right. Do we have a recovery plan? The answer is no. We actually have backups. So just for everybody to know this, a backup is not a recovery plan. Okay. No end-to-end DRP exercise. So this is also what we're going to talk about today. As I was saying, most of the time you guys have, intricate things that are meshed, and we need to understand, how things work, or, work together so we can recover better. As we were saying, if you're doing a DRP exercise, okay, but your hypervisors are down and you're just trying to run the AD part, well, for your AD part, well, first of all, for your hypervisors to run, you probably need their team, whatever, and it's too long to have their team do the recovery part for VMware or Hyper-V. So you're probably just going to recover, on a bubble quickly, do a few clicks, and your AD's up and running, and you think that's it. And that's just not it. That's not how it works. So I usually see this with most of my clients once a year. And right now we're trying to push it a little more. So that is not a DRP exercise. That's just basic recovery on Active Directory. Okay. Does anybody really go for full exercises here, like in a full compromise scenario? Okay.
Implementing that, we give a very structured GR plan. We do monthly patients.
Okay.
Pull them to yearly pull some watching boundaries. We haven't given the focus to intrusion and malware, and that's what we're working on that now. To implement the same type of process.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good already. Okay. So I guess that you guys are starting to, try to focus a little more on that part. Cool. All right. So buckle up, you're in for the ride of your lifetime, all right? So based on what we just seen on the previous slides, because most of, the orgs are not really ready or not very mature or not doing what they're supposed to, and say, all I see are easy targets, okay? So just imagine now you've enjoyed your lunch break and you get back to the office and you come back to this. Did this ever happen to anyone in the room? No? Nobody went through, ransomware and a real incident response and everything? You did? How fun was it? So that's actually the answer I was looking for. So I ride motocross. I'm a big fan of Travis Pastrana. And this probably sums up the video that comes, it probably sums up, what's going to happen during the next few months. And as the gentleman said, we said it was a great time, right?
Plus.
Are you alive? Are you alive?
I'm fine. How are you?
Holy, that was a hell of a ride.
So we got both answers there, right? Hell of a ride, right? And how long did it last?
We were mostly gone for 7 business days, and then recovery probably.
All right. So that's pretty good. 7 business days for your business critical apps and whatever. That's actually pretty good. And then you said a couple months, a month or two? Okay. Did you do all the job internally, or did you have support from consulting companies, insurance?
Insurance and incident response.
All right. How much, can I ask, did it cost?
First one, we decided
It really wasn't that bad? Okay. Well, it's an interesting point, though. He said for a very small company, 7 days to come back for business critical, apps, and a month or two to get everything working again. So now I don't know where you guys come from, which industry you come from. One of my clients, pharmaceutical client, when AD is down, basically, well, their directories, they have something like 50 directories. When their AD is down, they lose 70 million per day. Okay. So just imagine 7 business days, even though that's pretty good. 7 business days is pretty good. Well, just imagine, 70 mil times 7, that's what, 490 million right there for, a week off. And you can do that for banking, you can do that for retail, luxury, or whatever, and it really adds up really fast. Okay. So the overview for the next months. Do you guys remember margin call when they're all in the boardroom and about to, talk about laying off people and doing things like that? So the interesting part is usually, well, you have all the exec fund because now nothing's running in the company. They're losing a ton of money and they're trying to figure things out and they're not trained for it. So on a daily basis, they will be regrouping and usually telling people what to do, even though they're not technical. So I don't know if you lived through this, or did they leave you guys alone?
they were very support.
Cool. Well, small company, right? All right. Yeah. Phase 2 is usually lawyer up. So I put Barney Stinson right there, suit up, because of course, if you're a big corporation or whatever, you're going to need your lawyers. And phase 3 is drown. So I call this the CSI part. And as you said, so you have your insurance company and the forensics guys came in and they worked with you guys for how long?
They could be, well, kind of dragged out, but some notifications of information compromised. I said, well, they were there maybe a month.
Yeah, for a month. And usually do they have hands-on or do they ask you to run things for them?
We,
Oh, really? So they did have hands-on. They didn't ask you to do everything.
we actually asked.
Okay, yeah. So this is what usually happens when I'm saying drown. It's not a bad part, but when a company comes, well, falls to ransomware or whatever, and forensics team come in, they will actually ask you to do a ton of things, but they will not do them themselves because, they don't really have the permission to do it. The question for you guys, how many people in your teams, if we're talking about Active Directory, how many experts do you have in your teams? 3, 5? And these guys 2, all right, so less than 10. And these guys also handle what? Entra, provisioning, SailPoint, ForgeRock, whatever, CyberArk, all this stuff goes within the identity team, or is it really just AD guys? Just AD guys? All right, team of 8. So what I'm trying to say is usually, you know, when you're going through projects and programs or whatever within your company, the issue is you're understaffed because the guys have to run, you know, daily operation, maintaining, you know, operations and whatever, ensuring that everything's running fine, also handling the projects and also doing evolution programs. Does that sound about right? Yeah, okay. So now you're overrun with tons of work. The company's not working anymore because you guys just got ransomware. And now you have these people actually telling you on a daily basis, I need you to connect to whatever, dump this database, you know, do a memory dump for this and that and whatever. So all the time that you're going to spend doing this, you're not actually spending the time to do the recovery part. Okay. And this is why you have to focus on the recovery part and plan it out carefully. So that can be done by a monkey, I would say, you know, or my grandmother, while you're actually handling other things, because you won't have time to do both. And because your teams are so small, you won't be able to delegate. Okay. Still problems with the buzzer? All right, so I'm focusing on phase 3. You'll get the slides anyway afterwards. So this is really interesting. It's from the ANSI, so it's our French national cybersecurity, you know, entity, agency, I should say. And they really break it down in several parts. So if you go through incident response, this is usually what you'll be going through, all right? Through the remediation phase, you have containment, eviction, eradication, and during that, you also have rebuild. And as you can see, the plan is pretty intricate. There are a lot of things going on there. And the thing is, as I said, you're already understaffed. You're dead tired because you haven't slept in a couple of days because, you know, management is breathing down your neck and they're trying to understand when everything is going to come back. You have to work on, you know, finding a solution to recover everything within your company. And at the same time, you have the forensics teams that are asking for all this right here and coming out with plans and having a daily meeting. Well, it's actually not a daily meeting. It's usually 4 meetings per day. It's a meeting every 2 hours. So just trying to say, it makes things really, really complicated, okay? So what happens in real life, your untrained execs will be giving out orders, okay? If they're not trained, if they haven't gone through any tabletop exercises, and I'm pretty sure that's not the case for most people here, then basically they'll be very scared and panicked, and you know, they're gonna say, you know, do this, do that, or they're gonna try to give some technical opinions that they don't, you know, really understand. So that's really complicated. Understaffed teams, you guys will mostly be working 24/7, and you'll be working this exercise, not the recovery part. And yeah, your business will take weeks and months to get back online. So kind sir there said 7 days for business critical apps, but then said 1 month to 2 months for, you know, everything to be operational again. So this is pretty much it. So now Maverick would say, are you having any fun yet? Am I getting everybody worried, or are you guys falling asleep?
Well, in the Swiss Artisan for February testing, we locked up 20 hours festival for it.
20 hours?
Yeah. Just for the testing, you know, with having problems. Now, that was back in the old days when we had a lot more physical system.
Right.
Much more time. And at one point, I mentioned something to management. I'm like, are we really going to be driving Pike people home after a 16-hour shift? So they decided that it was better to get us all hotel rooms. So we would check into a room, run around 4 hours.
Right.
And I mean, that was helpful because no, you don't want to drive all after 16 hours and then try to get back into the office by 8 a.m. the next day.
Well, there's a different way to do that, is actually you stay at work so you don't have to leave work. So this is one of my
Do that too. It's so tough as what we're for, and you can shower.
Oh, a shower is overrated. Well, it's a crisis. You guys are losing 70 mil per day. Do you really have time to shower? No, it's a joke. But for one of my clients, I actually stayed 3 days in, and then I drove home, which was really stupid. But yeah. So what I'm trying to say, so you said 20 hours for the exercise, and just to recover what, AD or a little more than AD?
Oh, everything. We cover AD, SAP, various application.
Okay.
I mean, we did EMC and NetApp stats, so we'll recover them at the hot site. The hypervisors on the hot site just stayed vanilla, shut down.
Okay.
So they were pretty much inaccessible as we were doing a test.
Right.
And And this was just one day. This was a week long, sometimes a week and a half, depending on the nature of the task.
Okay. Where do you guys store your backups?
We had different systems, so I mean, we've moved off the tape data domains. Now we use Cohesity, Commvault. We use a few different products.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm just asking. I'm just wondering.
So we had some out.
All right, so some blobs, some whatever, some immutable storage somewhere. So technically, you should be okay. You should. I didn't say you are. You should.
Looking at, we have a replica of everything. We're looking at making a third replica
Okay.
at the DR on-site, just out of the sheer paranoia.
No, but I mean, you guys are taking it pretty seriously. Okay.
We actually were a customer use international pay for a long time, and some of this whole process, this started well over 20 years ago.
All right. So I guess you guys are pretty good on that part. Cool.
Practice. It always changes. It's hard to get good at it because it's
always changing, constant evolution, and that's actually what makes our job great, right? All right. So, time to come up with a plan. So, Kinds are right here. They have a plan, but I'm pretty sure you guys don't. I'll take a business case, so a B case that I did and I covered last year. So if you look at last year's session, we were talking about 12,000 users, 15,000 computers, 2,500 servers, hybrid identity. PK score was really bad, around 60%, flat network, and no governance, okay? And we defined three scenarios, but I'm just gonna present two very, very quickly because I only have 13 minutes left. If the buzzer wants to work. All right, so we actually had three cases, and these are two different cases. You'll get the slides. So in one, basically we were taking the existing environment and fixing everything, okay? Full remediation on the network side, on VPN gateways, whatever, putting in some PAM. So a little bit of evolutions and everything. And we had a 1-year plan, but if you look, it's more than 1,500 man days for external consulting and more than 500 internally. So that's about 3 million right there, just to do that without the hardware, without anything, okay? And then we had another case, so another B case for the same company saying, look, we can start fully from scratch somewhere else, build something military grade, and then migrate. And that probably will take, so same thing, it was evaluated for a 1-year program, and it was a little cheaper to start from scratch. But what I'm trying to say right here is, usually your company will say, come up with a plan, and you have to work on that plan, but it's a 3-year plan, right? Does that sound familiar, or do you just work on a next week basis? How does this work? 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plan? Is that, what you guys are going for? All right, that's usually what my clients go for. But the problem is, for this type of program to work, so in 1 year, you have to have a really strong commitment. So a realistic view would usually take 2 to 3 years to implement for most clients, okay? But as we said, are you able to wait 2 or 3 years to feel safe when you probably could be losing 70 million per day? So probably not. So there's another way to do this. So real question, can you wait for that long? No. How about an MVP approach? Does anybody know what an MVP approach is, or MVP? Exact. All right, so right here is Landman. I don't know if you guys saw the show. I thought it was pretty cool. You loved it, no? So why did I use this picture? Because you can see an oil rig right there that's burning, right? What is the main business part of, running an oil rig? Is it the people? Is it the shovels? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the computers? So what's the most important thing for the business to continue making money on a daily basis? So I heard safety. No, I think that humans are expandable on that end, just like in IT. But I heard oil pumping, right? So that's the most important part. You probably have tons of things going on. You probably have, head offices, computers, servers, whatever. All that crap can go down, right? The most important part for your business is actually to keep the oil pumping. So that was the good answer. Understand your business, and for most of you guys, your business ain't IT, okay? And that's the important thing. You really have to focus on what runs my business and what do I need. So does anybody know here what are the apps that they absolutely need to run? And don't say email or whatever, or Teams. Do you guys have a list? So yes, yes, you have 45 apps that are business critical.
Well, man, on the management side is I laugh. It's too much, but
45 is way too much. There's no way you need 45 apps to run your business. No, well, very little chance, I'll say, okay. But 45 is huge. And the most important part after that is, do you know which infrastructure they rely on? Because your app is one thing, but then it might need Active Directory, or it might need Entra, it might need Federation, it might need, I don't know, storage, whatever. And that's the most important part, because usually what happens is people will do backups here and there, and they think they're safe, but because we're not running everything, from a, full crisis scenario mode, whatever, you're never going to come back. You have backups, but you're not going to bring back the infrastructure. Can I operate in closed silos? So if you were ransomware and you don't know where it came from, forensics are going to come. They're going to do an analysis for probably a month or two. And during that time, if you just rebuild your infrastructure on the side, keep everything open, there's a very, very high probability that you're going to get ransomware again. Okay, so can you operate in silos, closed silos, tenants that are not open to the outside? How do you guys even do that or not? No answers?
So we were discussing this last month.
Uh-huh.
So if he had the advice, I'd opt to cock the session.
Sure. How fast can I DRP BCP? That's also a question. So 7 business days for critical applications is what we heard is what it took, and then another month or two, to get the rest running. How long can I survive in degraded mode? Because as I said, if we're working on an MVP approach, the idea is to build silos, okay? Closed silos, and you're going to work on a degraded mode. You're probably not going to have the freshest data or whatever, but we don't care as long as 70% of your business is running. That's what keeps you alive, okay? And of course, that can't last for months. So you have to define, how long can I run in this degraded mode while we go for forensics, remediation and everything, and the rebuild part. And once the rebuild part is done, can we actually move from our silos? Can we move the apps, and can we move all the data back into production, even if we're going to lose 30% of it? But that's acceptable as long as, your business keeps running. To give you another example, so one of the big companies in France called Saint-Gobain, I don't know if you've heard about it, they handle glass. Okay, when they fell, that was in 2017, they fell for close to a month and a half or 2 months. They said that they lost the incident cost them around 420 million, and we actually evaluated it to close to 1 billion, okay? Most companies would close. You guys don't have that type of cash. So just imagine if you don't have that type of cash and you can't produce or you can't do anything during that time, how can I keep things running? And this is why I say it's great to have a 3-year plan and to share it with management. It's great to see really far away in everything that you're supposed to do, but you have to come with a safety net. I used to say safety net is at least an Active Directory backup, okay? This is bringing it a little further, all right? You have to take baby steps. So you got your AD backup, you got your SQL, server backups, you have everything in a different place. Now you have to work to get everything together on a dedicated platform that's, of course, not on premise, and we can talk about that later, and ensure that things are running. So this is an example of something that I did for one of my clients. They're mainly on-prem, and they have, tiering, so tier 0, tier 1, and tier 2. And what we did is we actually, so they used Microsoft, so they were in Azure at the time. So this is why it says Azure. And what we did is we actually created silos for them. So a tier 0 silo, tier 1 silo, all network flows were already open because of course, that takes a really long time. And application teams would restore within the tier 1 silo based on what they're supposed to do. Say their only focus is, I need to restore my application server, and I know that I have to go through this procedure. So very monkey-minded business, very simple, straightforward. AD team, very simple. They take their backups. They're using Semperis ADFR, shooting it out to the cloud, same thing. Tier 0 bubble is back up and running and fully isolated because all the network flows were already pre-approved and pre-opened before. That means your applications are running again. So of course, it's not 100%, but the most critical applications are running, okay? So this is something that I strongly recommend. I usually hate the cloud, but I think that this, for exercises, I think it's really interesting. All right, now, Inception, so another movie that I like. If you can steal an idea from someone's mind, why can't you plant one there instead? What I'm trying to say right here, so on the left side, so the landman, the the guys who get their hands dirty, that's the IT guys, that's us, right? And now at Inception, we're talking about, the smart people, we're going for the execs. And you'll see it's a very, very different training on what you're supposed to do. So IT focuses on IT, and you know exactly what you're supposed to do, okay? Everything's written down procedure. You don't have to start thinking when you're going through a crisis. You just basically, break the seal, go for the procedure, and follow it. Methodology, just follow the method and it'll be fine, all right? For the C-suite, what we usually say is they're going to be panicked, which I would understand. And this is why you have to prepare so you're not panicked, okay? So in Inception, remember how they train their mind not to get hacked? This is pretty much the same thing. You have to define all the possible scenarios that could happen. This is when you go through tabletops. So you hire a consulting firm, they will come, they will define the scenarios that are, applicable within your industry. And you have to write them down. And you have to also go through all the decision trees. So why am I talking about decision trees? I got 3 minutes left, but this is pretty much the last slide. One of the companies I was working for, of course, is a multinational. So the group is in France, some offices in France, some in the rest of the world. And one of their branches got attacked and it was in the US. So now the question is, who's making the calls? Is it the global CISO and the global CIO in France? Or is it the local CISO and the local CIO in the US? I mean, legally, who has to take, accountability for this? Who's going to make the decisions? Do we cut off everything? Do we just cut off the US branch? If you don't think about this stuff, you just can't make it up when it hits the fan, This is when you have to define all the potential scenarios and you have to work through them, okay? Still waiting on the clicker. All right, we just went through everything, but it's okay. So tabletop exercise, once you've defined everything and you've run them and you've done the decision trees, tabletop exercises at least 2 times per year, because your C-level execs, they have to know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. And they're really supposed to focus on making decisions and the right decisions, okay? Focus on MTTR for applications, so mean time to recover for applications that make your business run. That's the most important part, okay? And then global MTTR, as I said, for global recovery, is basically based on how long you can survive in degraded mode. If you can go for 1 to 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then you know that your whole DRP exercise has to take less than 3 weeks for full recovery. Otherwise, your company is going to shut down. It's pretty simple math. I mean, it's not rocket science. Do we have any questions? I got 2 minutes left.
Hang on a second. Wait. So are we moving into Q&A?
No, I have one more slide, but if there was any question for this, would you?
I can wait for Q&A. It was in regards to tabletop exercises.
So let's wait for Q&A. And this is the last one, so a movie I really love, so Matrix. Okay, they say it's a system, if you look around, businessmen, teachers, so same thing, think about your org with tons of different entities, tons of different people, but everybody's sort of interacting together, and we have to understand how they interact and how the teams work together in order to be able to save the day when there's an incident, okay? And the fun part, of course, is the woman in red. I don't know if you guys remember that. Yeah, so the whole point is don't get distracted, and I can see everybody's looking at the video, but it's this, yeah. But it's the same thing in an IR, so think about it. Everything's down, nothing's working, and you have to have laser focus on what you're supposed to do. Don't get distracted by the woman in red, basically. You know that these apps are the apps that make money. All right, those are the apps that we have to recover. Once we're doing that and we're still, running the business 70% of the time, then we're good. We can focus on forensics, remediation, rebuild, whatever, we don't care. Nobody's gonna breathe down your neck if you're running, your business at 70%, okay? They will crack the whip on you if nothing's working. So key steps. If you're IT, stick to IT. I was talking about the MVP approach. Don't try to recover everything. Minimum viable product. So think about really what you need to make the business operate. If you're an exec, stick to decision making. Planning, training are key success factors. No one will criticize your actions if you can run the business. That's what I just said. If you can run your business during a cyber crisis, even if it's only 70%, nobody's going to criticize you. But they will if you don't have a plan. Okay? And once you have this approach down pat, you can plan for your 3-year evolution that we were talking about, the different cases, case 1, case 3, or whatever. You have to have a 3-year plan, but start with this plan. That's the most important. That's what keeps you alive. All right. Do we have any questions?
Tabletop exercises. So I'm finding that when we get invited to do these, and based on whatever scenario they present, it's very unrealistic. Any advice to give back to these companies that come in like that?
So is it a consulting firm that's working with you, or is it?
I believe so. They come in and they give a scenario, and our C-suite gets together and they pull a SMEs in and say, okay, we want you to tell us what you do in this scenario. And you read the first line, it's like, that's unrealistic. That would never happen.
I fully agree. So the first thing to do is you hire us.
Thank you.
No, that was a joke. But no, usually the issue that we have, a lot of companies have been going for this, is they'll come in and they already have a list of questions and a list of things that you're supposed to do. But most of the time they're bullshit because they're not tailor-made, custom-made to, your company. So the thing is, that's because they're usually cheap. I can come and do a tabletop exercise. If I reuse the slides and the assessment that I did for some other company, I can come and do it for you for $3,000. That's not an issue. But $3,000 is not going to get me 1 week working with your teams, understanding, what your business is, understanding everything that's critical, and then offering the scenarios. If you want to go for something like that, we're talking about $50K to $100K right there. That's a real assessment, because my teams will come in, my teams will talk to your operators, and not just the IT guys. We try to get an understanding about how the whole company works, because that's basically what hackers do. And then we'll try to pinpoint, some scenarios that are really feasible and happen. But as I said, it's pretty expensive. It's not a 5 or 10K exercise. Exactly, check the box, as I said before. Because your cyber insurance is probably going to ask, do you guys go through tabletop exercises? Yeah, look, I just paid $5,000 and I got a tick. Any other questions? We're running late, I know.
No, that's all right. So we're on a 30-minute break, but I know that Ben loves a good Q&A and even better, a good debate. So if you want to stick around, for sure. And I'm going to throw a question in here, because one of the takeaways from talking with you some number of years ago, you said a little bit about the management aspect of it, and it really stuck with me. I believe you called it tear the envelope decision making. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. So all these plans that we're defining right here, they have to be imprinted in people's minds, but of course that doesn't always work, okay? And we had a chat with Sean a few years ago, and I said, on a submarine, how sometimes you receive like a message saying you have to shoot out a nuclear warhead or whatever. They come and they actually break, something that's in the movie. I don't know if that's in real life. I never was in a submarine, but they just break this thing open and they have the codes on top. So that's what I'm calling about rip the envelope, okay? The envelope is not something that's stored, of course, on your network. If you're ransomware, then it's on your network, then you're screwed, okay? It's something that you probably have in a safe, and not just one safe, several safes. And when shit hits the fan, that's when you rip the envelope open, and here's your list of to-dos right there. So if you don't know them off by heart, and most of the time you don't, at least follow the plan. And that's the most important part, guys. Follow the plan. You're going to be under a huge amount of stress, very little sleep, doing 50 things at the same time. I know that you guys are good at what you do, and you probably really are. But the thing is, under this amount of stress and whatever, you're not going to operate correctly. Your brain doesn't function the same way. So take the lists, follow the lists, monkey steps, as I said, and that's what works. Does that answer?
Partly, but part of what you also talked about was leadership plan. So if you have a distributed organization where it is not a clear hierarchy of management, the technical people, us, will be sitting there on their thumbs while management is arguing back and forth about what decisions and who should be making the decisions. If you meet ahead of time and say, look, Jim Bob is going to be the one that's making the ultimate decisions, and then you hash it out months beforehand, not when it's costing you millions of dollars an hour.
So it's a very good point what Sean just said. And the issue was when I was working for this insurance company. So with this case where it was a French group and the US branch got hit, everybody was sort of fighting who's accountable for this and who's taking the decisions. All right, so the French people wanted to take the decisions and brought us in, but because it was in the US actually called legal, and they had their teams coming in, so forensics teams and whatever. So we were overstepping a little what we were supposed to do, and we were giving recommendations that the US guys were not following, but then the French leadership was trying to push. We lost about 3 weeks right there, just to be able to make the right decisions. So 3 weeks where they're losing millions, okay? And this is what we're trying to say with Sean. When you rip the envelope open, I might be your boss today. In this envelope, if it says that whoever makes the decisions, then that's how it works. You have to have a very acute chain of command. And if it's not clear, it's written down on this, tear the envelope open. Like, I'm the boss, I make the decisions, he's my subordinate, and he'll follow if I'm, dead or if I'm sleeping or whatever. But this is how we're supposed to move forward. So it's not just the technical steps, very important. It's also the org structure, chain of command, accountability, and whatever. And then, we can always point fingers at whoever did whatever wrong. But during that moment, it's really important to have everything down pat.
Thank you. Any questions? Well, we still have a couple minutes or no? Well, you know how to find him. He's easy to spot. You can do the one-on-ones. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.